Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night with the feeling that something was wrong, but you couldn't explain why? That cold rush down your spine, the way your stomach twists when you realize the silence in your room feels unnatural? What if I told you that feeling isn't just your imagination? What if I told you that sometimes the things we dismiss as just in our heads are real? Tonight, I'll share with you 3 terrifying true horror stories from Reddit. Stories that people swear happened to them. Stories that will make you question the shadows in your own home. This is not a movie. This is not fiction. These are real accounts. And once you hear them, you'll never forget them. Just turn off your lights, put on your headphones, and prepare yourself for the first story. Story 1. The Thing in My Basement. I grew up in an old house that my parents bought cheap. It had history. Too much history, if you asked me. The kind of place where the floorboards groaned even when nobody was walking and where the walls seemed to breathe in the dark. But the basement was the worst part. It wasn't finished, just bare concrete walls and a dirt floor in some places. The air down there was damp and heavy, like it never fully dried out. Even in the middle of summer, it was freezing cold. My parents kept holiday decorations in old boxes there, and whenever they sent me down to grab something, I would sprint up the stairs as fast as I could, because at night I would hear it, scratching, not like rats or mice. No skittering, no little claws. This was slow, deliberate, as if something with long nails was dragging them across the concrete floor, one painful inch at a time. At first I told myself it was pipes or the house settling. But one night when I pressed my ear to the floorboards, I could feel it. The vibrations of something moving underneath me. Something alive. One summer night when I was around 12, I decided to prove to myself it was nothing. I waited until everyone was asleep, grabbed a flashlight, and crept downstairs. The second I opened the basement door, the smell hit me. Stronger than usual. Damp earth, mildew, and something metallic, almost like blood. I clicked on my flashlight, and its weak beam shook across the room. The first thing I noticed was the dust. The basement floor was always covered in it, a fine gray layer. But this time, it wasn't smooth. It was disturbed. Long drag marks streaked across the floor from the far corner of the room, cutting through the dust in thick, uneven lines. My heart started racing as I followed them. They weren't random. They were marks from something heavy being pulled, or crawling. And then I saw it. A handprint. Not small like a child's hand, not normal like my own. This was larger, with bony fingers far too long. Pressed so deep into the dust, it looked like the concrete itself had almost cracked under the weight. I stumbled backward, my flashlight flickering as if the batteries were dying. And for the briefest moment, I thought I saw something shift in the darkness of the far corner. I didn't wait. I bolted up the stairs, slammed the door shut, and pushed a chair against it. My chest heaved as I sat there, trying to convince myself it was just my imagination. But the worst part? The scratching didn't stop after that night. If anything, it got louder. Sometimes when the house was silent and everyone else was asleep, I'd hear the faint creak of the basement door. My room was at the far end of the hallway, and I would lie awake, frozen, listening. And one night, I heard footsteps. Not quick, not human footsteps. They were uneven, dragging, like something was pulling itself across the floor. They moved down the hallway, stopping just outside my bedroom door. I held my breath, clutching the covers, praying I wouldn't hear the handle turn. The silence that followed was worse than the footsteps. By morning, the door was still locked. My parents never believed me. They said I was imagining things, that I had an overactive imagination. We moved out about a year later. The new house was brighter, newer, safer. But even now, years later, I can't sleep without listening for sounds beneath me. Sometimes, when the night is too quiet, I swear I still hear it. That scratching, that dragging, the thing from the basement, reminding me it's still waiting. Story 2. The Vanishing Hitchhiker. It happened last winter, sometime around midnight, when the world outside was nothing but a blur of snow and fog. I was driving home from a late shift at work, exhausted, my eyes heavy, my fingers numb from gripping the freezing steering wheel. The roads were slick, coated with a thin sheet of ice, and every sound the hum of my engine. The crunch of tires on snow echoed louder than it should have in the emptiness. That's when I saw her. At first, I thought my tired mind was playing tricks on me. But as my headlights cut through the fog, I saw a figure on the side of the road. A girl, maybe in her 20s, wearing a thin white dress that clung to her as if it were soaked through. Her skin looked pale, almost bluish in the headlights, and she wrapped her arms around herself, shivering violently in the cold. I slowed down, even though every instinct in me screamed not to. There was something wrong about her, something unnatural about seeing anyone out here. Miles from town in the dead of winter, dressed like that. But the part of me that couldn't just leave someone freezing to death pulled the car to a stop. She stepped forward, her bare feet crunching in the snow, and I could see her face more clearly. Dark hair plastered to her cheeks as though she'd been caught in the rain. Lips trembling so hard I thought she might not even be able to speak. When she opened the door and slid into the passenger seat, the air in the car turned icy, colder than the outside. My breath clouded instantly, and the smell of damp earth mixed with something metallic filled my nostrils. She didn't look at me, didn't even greet me. She just whispered an address in a voice so faint I had to lean closer to hear it. Her voice cracked, broken, as though she hadn't spoken in a long time. I nodded and pulled back onto the road, my hands tightening around the wheel. The entire time I kept glancing at her from the corner of my eye. She sat rigidly, staring straight ahead, her hands clasped tightly together in her lap. Her hair was dripping. Actual droplets fell onto my seat, soaking the fabric. And her skin, it was too pale, like she hadn't been outside in the sun for years. I tried to start a conversation to ask if she was okay, if she needed a hospital. She didn't respond. The only sound she made was the faintest whisper of breath fogging up the window beside her. As the drive went on, my unease grew. The road was quiet, but every time I stole a glance at her, I felt an overwhelming sense that she didn't belong. She wasn't supposed to be there. But halfway to the address, I reached for my jacket in the back seat. I wanted to offer it to her maybe, just to feel normal again. Like this was just a stranger I was helping, not whatever my mind was telling me she was. But when I turned, jacket in hand, the seat was empty. She was gone. I slammed on the brakes, my car skidding slightly on the ice. My chest tightened, my breath coming in sharp bursts. The passenger door was still closed. The seatbelt was still buckled, but she wasn't there. The seat was wet, soaked through as if she'd been sitting there only seconds ago. My knuckles turned white as I gripped the wheel again, forcing myself to keep driving. My eyes darted between the mirrors and the road, half expecting her to appear again. When I finally reached the address she had whispered, I hesitated before knocking. My fist hovered in the cold air for a long moment, my body trembling not just from the winter, but from dread. Finally, I knocked. The door opened slowly, and an old man appeared. His eyes were bloodshot, his face lined with grief that time hadn't healed. I described her, the thin white dress, the long wet hair, the pale skin, the way she shivered, the way her voice cracked as she whispered the address. The man's face went pale. His hands shook as he clutched the edge of the door. He told me his daughter had died 5 years ago, drowned in a lake just off that same road. Her car had skidded on the ice, flipping into the freezing water. When they found her body, she was wearing a white dress. It's the exact same dress I had just seen. Stood there, speechless, my breath clouding in the night air. The man's eyes watered as he whispered, "You're not the first one who's come here asking about her. I never drove that road again at night." And every winter, when the fog rolls in and the roads turn to ice, I wonder how many others see her standing there in the snow, waiting for someone else to pick her up. Story 3. Someone was outside my window. It was the middle of July. It's a kind of summer where the heat seems to stick to your skin no matter how many fans you have running. My room was upstairs, facing the backyard, and every night I would leave my window open just to let in the slightest breeze. It was quiet, safe, or at least I thought it was. One night, sometime after 2 a.m., I woke up to a faint sound. Tap, tap, tap. At first, half asleep, I thought it was just a tree branch swaying against the glass. I rolled over, ready to fall back asleep, but something gnawed at me, strange tension in the air. I opened my eyes, and there it was, a face pressed against my window. A man's face, pale and thin, with eyes wide open and lips curled into a smile that made my stomach twist. For a moment I was frozen. My mind tried to convince me I was still dreaming, but then I saw his breath fogging up the glass. He was real. He was right there. I screamed, stumbling for my phone, but by the time I turned on the light, the face was gone. The night outside looked empty, as if nothing had been there at all. My parents rushed in, searched the backyard, checked the locks, but found nothing. No footprints in the dirt. No broken branches. Nothing. The next day, I tried to laugh it off, telling myself it was just a trick of the light, maybe even a nightmare. But that night, when I closed my eyes, I kept seeing his smile in the dark. The following evening, I locked the window, shut it tight, pulled the blinds, and told myself I would finally sleep without fear. But at exactly 2 a.m., I woke again. This time, the sound didn't come from the window, it came from inside. Tap, tap, tap from my closet. The door was slightly open, a thin sliver of darkness cutting into the room. My heart pounded in my ears as I stared at it, my body refusing to move. Then I heard it, breathing, slow, heavy, human. I wanted to scream, but the sound caught in my throat. My hands shook as I reached for my phone, my fingers barely able to unlock it. When the flashlight flicked on, I aimed it at the closet. The breathing stopped. The door stood there, still cracked open. Nothing moved. Summoning every ounce of courage, I sprinted out of the room, down the hallway, and into my parents' bedroom. My father grabbed a bat and stormed into my room, flinging the closet door wide open. It was empty. Just my clothes, some old boxes, nothing out of place. But the air was heavy, thick, and the smell, it was wrong. Like damp earth mixed with sweat, lingering in the corner where the darkness seemed too deep. For weeks after, I refused to sleep in that room. I camped out on the couch, too afraid to even walk upstairs alone. Eventually, my parents decided we should move, and we did. The new house was better, brighter, safer. Sometimes, at exactly 2 a.m., I wake up for no reason at all. And I swear I hear it again. Tap, tap, tap. Sometimes at the window, sometimes at the closet. It's always at 2 a.m., and I can't shake the feeling. That smile is still waiting for me. You've now heard 3 terrifying stories: the scratching in the basement, the vanishing hitchhiker, and the smiling man at the window. Maybe you're thinking these are just stories. Maybe you're telling yourself none of this could ever happen to you. But here's the thing. Every one of these accounts came from someone who thought the same thing until it happened to them. So tonight, when you turn off your lights, when your house goes quiet, ask yourself, what if something is listening? What if something is watching? And if you wake up at 2 a.m. to a sound you can't explain, don't ignore it, because not every story on Reddit stays online. Some of them follow you home. If you want more terrifying true stories like these, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Leave a comment about which story chilled you the most. Sweet dreams. If you can sleep tonight.